are these people?
Article that I'm going to reference, it's nuts.
Mm.
Like, I mean, in a way, I have to give. I forgot the journalist name right now, but I have to give props for actually doing this, and I have to give props to Danielle Weiss, again, this woman on the right. You know, just for being blatantly honest in terms of her Zionism. You know, and like, I can appreciate that because you know where she stands, and you know of her intent in terms of, why the things that she's done, and essentially why she is a Zionist, and what's her intention in terms of her role within the settler movement in the West Bank. So again, just to kind
Settler
of
movement. Sure.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's what they call themselves. So just to give you a little bit of background about Daniela, she actually was mayor of Keduim. I assume
Okay.
that's in the West Bank. For I think about at least 6 years. Born in Palestine, but she is one of the movement. She's one of the big dogs in terms of the settler movement in the West Bank. Since the 90s.
Right.
So she did an interview. Let's see, catch up. So she did an interview with the New Yorker with Isaac Chotiner.
Visions of a rider. Sorry, what?
The Extreme Ambitions of West Bank Settlers, a leader of the settlement movement on expanding into Gaza, and a vision for the Jewish state. So, as I said, this kind of went mini viral over the weekend, and I thought it was just, but it kind of gives, like, again, talking about the IDF. So I'm kind of glad that we did that, my former segment, to give context to it. Now we have the visuals and everything. Now we get to hear, her side.
Right.
In terms of her vision, for the West Bank and the Israeli state.
Yeah.
So for decades, Daniela Weiss has been one of the leaders of Israel's settler movement. Weiss became involved in settlement politics in the wake of the 1967 war. In the early 70s, her family moved to the settlements in the West Bank, and she later served for a decade as mayor of Keduim, a community in the north. She has also been arrested numerous times, including for assaulting a police officer and interfering with an investigation into the destruction of Palestinian property. More recently, she has been affiliated with the Nakala Settlement Organization, which helps younger settlers establish illegal outposts in the West Bank, an initiative that's controversial even among the settler community. Weiss is a neighbor and ally of Bezalel Smotrich, the extremist minister of finance, who has said that the Palestinian people do not exist and that Palestinian communities need to be erased. He also lives in Keduim.
Okay.
Weiss and I really recently spoke by phone. Since the Hamas massacre of October 7th, Benjamin Netanyahu's government, in addition to invading Gaza, has, with its allies in the settler movement, become increasingly aggressive in the West Bank. 16 Palestinian communities have been removed from their land, and 175 Palestinians have been killed. I wanted to talk to Weiss to understand the extremism of the settler movement and her ultimate intentions for the West Bank. During our conversation, edited for length and clarity, we also discussed how her religious attitudes shape her view of the conflict between Israelis and Palestinians, why human rights should not be considered universal, and why she should not be expected to mourn for dead Palestinian children. So you already see the fuck shit already.
Yeah.
So,
I mean,
so you can tell this is going to be a doozy of an interview. But Yeah. So, anyway, so he continues. Where are you from? I was born in Israel in 1945, 3 years before the birth of the modern Jewish state. I was born in the Tel Aviv area.
Uh-huh.
And your parents? My father was born in the United States. My mother was born in Warsaw, Poland, and she immigrated with her parents to Israel when she was a year old. She became to Israel many years before the state of Israel was born. How would you describe the settler movement? I see the settler movement today as a direct continuation of the settler movement of 120, 30, 40 years ago. I see it as a chapter in the history of Zionism, and we are one of those chapters of modern Zionism. Settlement is the way to return to Zion. You said settlement is the way to return to Zion. Yes, it's the end of dispersion and the beginning of the revival of the nation in this homeland.
Okay.
What are the borders of that Jewish nation? The borders of the homeland of the Jews are the Euphrates in the east and the Nile in the southwest. This would include the territory of multiple Middle Eastern countries, as well as the territory that Israel controls today.
Right.
Right? We've talked
So
about this, right?
more than just Israel. Yes.
More than just Israel. So that's
Right.
why
Like
Egypt,
Syria
Jordan,
and Egypt
Syria,
and
Lebanon are not
right.
fucking with Israel right now.
So hold
because,
on. Pause. Because
yes,
from the Euphrates to the Nile. Okay, so we're going to take
right.
one river and go to another river. It's very similar to another phrase I've heard recently.
Yep.
But also, it's a lot bigger of an area you want to control than just from the river to the sea. You want to the Nile. So,
right.
you want from the river to the river.
You know what? I thought of this. Can you pull up a map of the
Yes.
Middle East?
Yes.
Just to give people context.
I can do
Because,
that.
yeah, I think it's very important to kind of see what she's talking about. Because, as you said, Palestinians are demanding from the river to the sea. So basically, they're saying from the Jordan to the Mediterranean.
Right.
So basically,
So
that sliver of what is Palestine/Israel. So
here's Jerusalem. Right. There's
right.
Tel Aviv. Right. So if we back out here, right, this
So the
should be.
Nile,
Well, Nile's going to be like
the
over
Nile's in
here.
Egypt. So right over there. Yeah. So over there,
Yeah.
that's the Nile in Egypt.
Yeah.
Right.
I
And the
imagine
Euphrates,
through here, through Cairo.
the Euphrates is going to be to the east in like Saudi Arabia area, like
Yeah.
over there. So
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, a lot bigger than from here
like,
to here.
right. So yeah.
From here
So
to like way over here. I mean, we could literally do how about Euphrates River? It's in Iraq.
Iraq, yeah.
So we go that's the river, so we zoom outies. Keep zooming. Come on. So
Right.
yeah, from here to here.
Right. So, and there's significance for that because that's a trade route.
Yes. I mean, one of the, it's
That's a
literally
trade
like
route.
the trade route.
That's
Like
the trade route.
classically.
Right. But that's why Israel, with help of the West, want to take.
Yeah.
You know, so, but regardless, you know, I will get more into this later, but when Palestinians say from the river to the sea, that's some bullshit. but she's saying from the Euphrates to the Nile, which is a lot bigger territory, that's seemingly okay. So, and as I said, we'll get more into that later. Actually, let's talk about this here. There's a Palestinian slogan that has become very controversial: from the river to the sea, which means from the Jordan River to the Mediterranean. It's controversial because it would include all the land that currently makes up Israel. But you're saying from the river to the... What is controversial? So Dan asked, what is controversial? Palestinians sometimes use the slogan from the river to the sea, but what you're saying is that from the river to the Nile is the Jewish homeland.
No.
Correct?
No.
No.
She's saying a different river.
Right. So this dude fucked up. And I
wonder he doesn't know. Purpose. He assumed that that's the river, but the Euphrates is in Iraq, the Nile's in Egypt.
Right.
So no.
So homeboy doesn't know his geography, or he didn't catch that.
I mean, I didn't unless I Googled, but luckily, like I'm smart boy. I go, I don't know where this is at. Let me look at map. Okay, here. Okay, that's not like here. Like that's not
right.
Okay.
So,
but of course.
If someone decides to invent a new religion today, who will decide the rules? The First Nation that got the word from God, the promise from God. The First Nation is the one who has the right to it. The others that follow, Christianity and Islam, with their demands, with their perceptions, they're imitating what exists already. So why in Israel? They could be anywhere in the world. They came after us in a double sense.
Okay. Pause. Okay, pause. Do you fucking think? Are you so fucking stupid that you think the Jews are the first religion? Let's fucking start with that bullshit right there. Okay, look, like fucking cut head. You know that other river you were talking about? That one about the Nile?
Euphrates.
Y'all know y'all had like Ra and fucking Hemotep before. And like what are they? What are they? I don't know. Depictions of Mesopotamian gods that got fucking which were then depictions of like the other African gods that
which is mentioned in the Old Testament.
Yes.
So
yes, we get like Baal and like there's like y'all motherfucker need to reread that Old Testament. I know it's tough. I know it's in Hebrew, but like, I mean, I don't know. Like, I mean, you remember how Moses brought like some fucking shit, and then there was another religion that didn't. Okay, just saying. Just saying. Like
anyway,
whatever. Whatever.
At least you're having fun with that.
I mean, you might as well.
Yeah. When did you first get involved in the settler movement? In 1967, in the 6-Day War. The 6-Day War was such a miracle and aroused very deep feelings toward the birthplace of our nation. Hebron, Shiloh, Jericho, Nablus. And because of the miracle of the war, we had this spiritual sensation.
They think a fucking war is a miracle. Okay, continue.
And because the miracle of the war, we had this spiritual sensation that something happened in the dimensions of a biblical scene. I felt that I wanted to be an active part in this miraculous happening. My husband didn't like the idea of moving from Tel Aviv to the mountains of Judea and Samaria. He liked our life near Tel Aviv. But then, when the Yom Kippur War broke out in 1973, I became involved in a very intensive way, and so did my husband. We both became part of a settler movement of Gush Enuim, the movement that established communities in Judea and Samaria. I forced my husband to follow me and our 2 daughters, they were little ones, to a tiny tent on the mountains of Samaria where we all live today. Now we have a big family with 4 generations. My mother-in-law came with us, and then we had our daughters and grandchildren and great-grandchildren. They were all settlers in Samaria.
Okay.
In a lot of these places where settlements have been developed from 1967 to the present day, there have been Palestinian communities and Palestinian families. What is your feeling about where these people should go? It's the opposite. None of the communities in Judea and Samaria are founded on an Arab place or property, and whoever says this is a liar. I wonder why you said it. Why did you say that since you have no idea about the real facts of history? That's not true. The opposite is true. Who got this idea into your mind? Palestinian communities have been removed from their land, kicked off their land by... No, you never read things like that. No, there are no pictures. According to a report by B'Tselem, an Israeli human rights group, parts of Kejuim, where Weiss lives, were built on private Palestinian land in 2006.
Yep.
He's now found that privately owned Palestinian land comprised nearly 40% of the territory of West Bank settlements and outposts.
Yeah, there's no pictures. Are you fucking...
Why the fuck you lying? Why you always lying? Oh my God, stop you fucking lying.
Like, stop it. Fucking, there's no pictures. Get the fuck. Like, there's pictures from fucking 1948, homegirl. Like, you know, like, what do you, there's pictures of before. It wasn't just like rocks and rubble then.
Oh no, and hold on to that, because I got more that talks about that in a different, not picture, but video.
Okay. So, oh, you mean of like secular Palestine when it was like fucking roaring 20 cars were rolling by and
something like that. Something like that. But
yeah.
But yeah, we'll get to it. Okay. I'm a little surprised you are denying this. I thought you were going to say it's okay to kick Palestinians off land because it belongs to Jewish people. You did no homework before you interviewed me. Everything that you say is the opposite of my personality and my philosophy. You're interviewing a person and you don't know anything about it. It's very strange. I've never encountered a situation like this. I was trying to understand where Palestinians who live in the West Bank should go. Why should they go? Why should they go? They should stay where they are, you're saying. They should accept the fact that the land of Israel, there is only one sovereign. This is the issue. So let's not confuse things. We, the Jews, are the sovereigns in the state of Israel and in the land of Israel. They have to accept it.
If it was the shoe on the other foot, would you? No.
If they accept it, should they receive full voting rights and things like that? In the state of Israel, they have the right to vote for the Knesset because Ben-Gurion gave them this right.
Yep.
He trusted them, and even if he didn't trust them, he didn't have much of a choice. 3 years after the Holocaust, he wanted to have a state for the Jews, and he knew the world would make problems with the issue of voting. But in the 75 years since independence, the Arabs in the state of Israel and the Arab members of the Knesset showed in every possible way that their idea is to establish a Palestinian state. They are not working for the interests of the state of Israel. So I think the Arabs in Judea and Samaria have no right to ask for rights or take part in the elections for the Knesset. They lost their right to vote for the Knesset. They will never get this right. They will have their own Palestinian authority where they can run their civilian affairs in a logical way, but not as members of the Knesset. No.
Silent K.
So rights are not some sort of universal thing every person has. There's something that you can win or lose. That's right.
Okay.
You've been part of the settlement movement during a lot of different. How do you feel that the current government of the past year has been treating settlers broadly compared with past government? I will say that it's better under Netanyahu. It doesn't satisfy my ambitions and my dreams and my plans, but there are 800,000 Jews or settlers if you want. So this gives me a lot of encouragement that from that 800,000 will become 2 million, then 3 million. When you say that the government's been better but hasn't realized your dreams, what are those dreams? 2 million Jews in Judea and Samaria, more settlements, more farms, bigger cities. When you say that you want more Jews in the West Bank, is your idea that the Palestinians there and the Jews will live side by side as friends, or that if they accept our sovereignty, they can live there? So they should accept the sovereign power, but that doesn't necessarily mean having rights. It just means accepting the sovereign power. Right. No, I'm saying specifically that they're not going to have the right to vote for them to set. No, no, no. Can you talk about the settlement outpost movement and your role in that, especially with young people that you served as somewhat of an inspiration for? A post is a basis for a bigger community. That's the name of the game. And why is that controversial even among the settlers? I don't know that it's controversial. Some might not know the process. And people say to me, I want to build a new outpost that will be as nice as the older one that we see. I say to them, it was a place with one family and now hundreds of. So this is how it started. In Israel, there's a lot of support for settlements, and this is why there have been right-wing governments for so many years. See that? Yep. So the world, and especially the United States, think there is an option for a Palestinian state. And if we continue to build communities, then we block the option for a Palestinian state. We want to close the option for a Palestinian state, and the world wants to leave the option open. It's a very simple thing to understand. So, again, I kind of admire her honesty here.
Yeah, it's like, single state solution, just we want it.
Right.
Yeah. Which is why it should be the opposite at this point.
Right.
Like, okay.
When Israel pulled out of Gaza in 2005, it also closed down settlements in the region. This was under the Sharon government. And there's been talk by some settlers since October 7th about the need to repopulate Gaza with settlement.
Yep.
What are your feelings about what should happen with Gaza? Right now, I'm on my way to a TV interview where I'm going to speak about our movement's efforts to return to Gaza, the entire Gaza, and build settlements. I think that what I also pulled is from that interview, actually.
I'll be talking about it soon, so as well. So
okay,
at least partially.
Think it was a mistake? Yeah. So you think it was a mistake to pull out settlements nearly 20 years ago? It was a mistake. The whole world is crying now because of that. The whole world suffers from Hamas's rise.
Which y'all did.
Problem.
It is your problem, in fact.
No country in the world said they were going to accept even 1,000 people from Gaza. The world hates them. It was such a big mistake to let them rise.
Except that's not the case. There have been people accepting refugees from Gaza, including us.
Right.
But also, maybe it's because they don't want them forced out of their homeland. Maybe that's right. Maybe it's that. So
where should the Palestinians in Gaza go? To Sinai, to Egypt, to Turkey?
Pause.
They're not Egyptian.
They still want Egypt. They want it to fucking cut like the Nile. Right. So if they go to Egypt and in 10 fucking years you make it to the fucking Nile, where are they gonna go then?
Right. Well, this is what I've been saying, is the idea of like they want them to go to the places to give the excuse, oh, we need to take over. Because as she said, from the Euphrates to the Nile. So if they go to Egypt, that's going to expand that gives them an excuse to expand their territory. So they're not Egyptian or Turkish, though. Why would they go to Turkey? Okay, the Ukrainians are not French, but when the war started, they went to so many countries. Their country was being bombed, and so many of them fled west. And Gazan people are dying to go to other places. Except they can't because you don't allow them to.
And then you bomb their fucking ways out.
I think Ukrainians wanted to go to Europe because they get bombed. And the Gazan people want to get bombed by us. Maybe one option, rather than bombing them, would be to help to develop a society for them in Gaza, right? Okay, I wish you luck. Go ahead, go for it. So, so Queen Newsom, actually, she responded to that part on Twitter. The piece that I just read.
Right.
She says, perfect example of how USA is doing to the Palestinians exactly what they accuse Russia of doing to the Ukrainians.
Yeah.
Only they say Ukraine has a right to defend itself, but Palestine doesn't. This is apparent to anyone outside the bubble of US imperialism.
Also, the fact that they are trying to equivocate the two when that isn't there's far more evidence of Azov battalions literally in rooms where children were taught, like literally in hospitals. Like there's video and like, which we'll get to. You guys don't have video of the opposite of Hamas in tunnels that you built. Like, which not even talking about the fact that because there's no gas coming in, how the fuck are they going to be able to pump air down there? Anyone still in the tunnels is dead. Like, you know, like even the Great Escape had to pump air into a tunnel. And that was like 60 feet or some craziness. However far fucking Brando had to crawl. Okay.
Do you feel that Netanyahu and his government to you and your cause? He's very sympathetic, but he's not as brave as we are. We saw some horrible images on October 7th of what happened to Israeli children, and now we see some of what is happening to Palestinian children. When you see Palestinian children dying, what's your emotional reaction as a human being? I go by a very basic human law of nature. My children are prior to the children of the enemy, period. They are first. My children are first. We are talking about children. I don't know if law of nature is what we need to be looking at here. Yeah, I say my children are first.
And what about what they say? Like, they say their children are first. So you wonder why they might fucking point a stick at you. Like, it's maybe because you've been fucking bombing them. It might be a little bit of that. Fucking anyway.
So this is her. I think this is the interview that she described that she did. So it's very short. So let's take a listen to what she says here. The land of Israel belongs to the people of Israel. And all of Gaza belongs to the land of Israel. According to the map, from the Euphrates River to the Nile River. So she says it again. What if it's in our hands? We have seen the Arabs leaving their homes. We have to invade. When? Directly after the war. We can invade the northern borders immediately.
Yep. The northern borders. Not Gaza, where Hamas is.
Right.
You know. Sure. Okay.
You said you wanted to say something, I think. You said.
No, it's just the northern border. It's like her idea of what they fucking own is so far what everyone else even thinks they fucking own. Like, and this is, I was talking about this with Indy the other day. Like, what does it stop there? Like, who's to say they don't want to move past the Nile?
Right.
And we've been funding it.
Right.
It's using our technology and tactics and whatever. Like, it's us. And if you don't think BlackRock and whatever are in there buying up their own real estate, just like they have been in Ukraine, and they're the ones going to rebuild the stuff.
Right.
Like, this is money and resources to be had.
Right. Speaking of resources, we talked about how, and I know a lot of people have mentioned this before in independent media, that there's a huge oil reserve just out the Gaza coast.
Natural gas.
So,
yeah.
Natural
and where there's
gas.
natural gas,
So,
there's oil.
And oil too.
Yeah.
So that's kind of
not to mention between the Nile and the Euphrates, there's quite a large amount of oil and natural gas. So,
right. But then also just the Suez Canal, which is also in Egypt, you know, which is a huge trading port. So imagine Israel having control of that and basically having control. Essentially, I think you remember maybe a couple of years ago when that freighter kind of got stuck in the Suez.
Yeah, one Valdez.
Yeah, and
the one that got stuck. Yeah, in the canal.
Yeah, the one that got stuck. Yeah, that was. I think it was 2 years ago. So like that just stopped, you know, trade for like weeks.
Yeah.
So imagine Israel having control over that.
Right.
So, but anyway, but not just those resources. I found this clip from Al Jazeera about other natural resources in the West Bank that potentially, and I'm sure a lot of people won't think of it in this way, that the settlers probably potentially want to exploit as well. So you'll see what I mean in a second.
جيت أنا عبط شجرة الزيتون من غلاتها عبطتها على في حضني.
It was precious to me, so I hugged it. I felt like I was hugging my child. I raised a tree like my child. Mafoda Gia, sorry, her name, is a Palestinian farmer in the photograph from 2005 who embraced the trunk of an olive tree after it was attacked by Israeli settlers. Since 1967, the Israeli authorities and settlers have uprooted at least 800,000 olive trees belonging to Palestinians in the occupied West Bank. They attacked about 500 trees
filled with olives.
Each tree could have filled 2 sacks of olives. Olive trees are a crucial source of income for Palestinians and a symbol of Palestinian national identity and connection to their homeland. During the 2020 olive harvest season, at least 26 Palestinians were injured, and more than 1,700 trees were vandalized by Israeli settlers. In 2021, at least 365 settler attacks against Palestinians were recorded.
So you mean it's not just October 7th?
Settler violence is being primarily designed to take over land, but also to imitate and terrorize Palestinians, according to the UN.
Intimidate, yep.
Intimidate. They destroyed my olive trees, but I grew them back. I tended them and they came back even better than before. Settlers will never be able to take my land. This is our land, not theirs. We will keep resisting until the world ends.
So, yeah. I mean, olives are kind of important to them.
Yeah. I will argue the point, well, to the region.
I mean, it's really on their, what are the scarves called? Kufias? Yeah. Like part of the patterning on that is leaves of an olive tree. Like that's standard.
Tree. Yeah.
So that and like fish are part of that, and you know, so it doesn't matter. Said in the chat, taking their livelihoods, their income. And it's not like these trees don't. They're not like, you know, like they take a minute to get that big. Like,
right.
you know,
And
those
produce
aren't
the olives that they need. So,
right. Yep.
Um,
Well, you have Baldwin
anyway,
here.
so a couple more. So we have James Baldwin here, who kind of talks about. So this is kind of going back to like the phrase whenever he doesn't talk about it here, but he does mention the
Something close, right?
Here. But talking about the hypocrisy in terms of phrases that when I'll let him talk, and you guys are smart.
If we were Irish, if we were Jewish, if we were Poles, if we had, in fact, in your mind, a frame of reference, our heroes would be your heroes too. Nat Turner would be a hero for us.
Look, Dick Cavett.
Malcolm X might still be alive. And everyone is very proud of brave little Israel, a state against which I have nothing. I don't want to be misinterpreted. I'm not an anti-Semite. But when the Israelis pick up guns, or the Poles, or the Irish, or any white man in the world says, "Give me liberty or give me death," the entire white world applauds. When a black man says exactly the same thing, word for word, he is judged a criminal and treated like one, and everything possible is done to make an example of this bad nigger so there won't be any more like him.
I mean, change the N word to Palestinian.
Right.
And you'll get, or anyone of color, I would argue. And
we've got this guy. If I zoomies. In order for nonviolence to work, your opponent must have a conscience. The United States has none. Replace that for Israel.
Right.
Same difference, correct?
Yeah.
So,
I got one more clip. This was a gift on Monday. And I think this is very poignant given the protests in DC yesterday. So, but this is now. It's long, but hear every word. Most of what she said. But and I guess she's very popular on TikTok, probably for the right and not necessarily.
Yeah, what is it? Weeping the Jeebles?
Something.
My fellow Jews, we need to talk. And heads up, this will be necessarily uncomfortable for us both. The discourse on Zionism and the escalation between Israel and Palestine has completely devolved into identity politics and vitriol. Now, I'm not trying to center Jews per se, but the reality is when Jews come together and stand up for the rights of others, the world takes notice. So where we stand on this issue is very important. And we seem to be standing on two very opposite sides of the spectrum. Now, I'm worried that this situation is going to devolve further in the coming weeks and months, involving surrounding nations, potentially starting a much larger war. So at this juncture, I am urgently reaching out to my Zionist friends, family, and followers, and I hope you'll listen with your heart open. Now, I'm aware that many self-identifying Zionists believe that Jewishness and Zionism are one and the same. And I agree with you to the extent that this is the common perception. I'm also aware that many self-identifying Zionists define Zionism as self-determination for a Jewish homeland. And often the definition stops there. For me, this definition necessarily expands to at the expense of Palestinian citizens. And this is where I draw a very hard line, because to accept the former without the latter requires a large amount of dissonance. Now, you may be thinking, I'm an American Jew. What's it got to do with me? Why is it important that we consider our position on Zionism? In the world's eye, Israel is a Jewish state because it's declared itself as such. And we know with a great deal of recorded evidence that the Israeli government has been oppressing Palestinians all this time. And here's the important part. While hiding behind the shield of Judaism and the Shoah, using it as both its defense and its sword. This is so incredibly infuriating and offensive. But do you know what I find more infuriating and offensive? Genocide, murder, pain, suffering, no matter who does it, no matter who receives it. We should at least agree on that. Israel, the country which claims to be of and for the Jewish people, is by the numbers inflicting more harm, more death, more destruction onto the Palestinian people than Hamas ever did to Israel. Hamas is a terrorist organization, yes. And the Israeli government is an oppressive totalitarian regime holding far more power over money, resources, and narrative. If you're an American Jew, it's relevant that our military and our president is providing millions in funding to Israel so it can bring more might, fury, and more slaughter to innocent Palestinians. They aren't targeting Hamas, despite having the intelligence and resources to do so. They are leveling cities and bombing civilians indiscriminately. Now, if you disagree, I would be open to seeing any evidence you have of measured, precise attacks. But that's not what I've been seeing. Please don't scroll me away because these words hurt you to hear. If you're as uncomfortable as I am right now, you need to hear this so that we can grow. This is being done in our name. It's a disgrace to Jewish identity. It should offend you deeply, right down to your heart. Even if it's not you and I doing it, personally. Even if you have not previously defined Zionism this way, this is in fact what Zionism accomplishes. Zionism hasn't been about Jews having a homeland for some time. We have a homeland. Nobody's taking that away. For fuck's sake, Israel is backed by the US military. It doesn't need to harm innocent civilians to exist, but it does, and it is, and it's using our good name to do it, and calling that Zionism. And they've been working hard a very long time to convince you and the world that Zionism and Jewishness are one and the same, thereby tethering your identity, your very being to their actions, no matter how awful they become. And if you've fallen for their absolutism, to decry their actions, well, that could feel like betraying yourself. Have you heard of cognitive dissonance? It's an ego defense we all use to reduce the discomfort we experience when our behavior or our expressed beliefs are at odds with our self-concept. And most humans will go to great lengths to reduce this discomfort. For example, pretending the threat to our belief doesn't exist. Distracting from the threat to our belief, commonly accomplished with whataboutism. Justifying the belief. Perhaps the violence is necessary retribution for an offense, or even to prevent a future offense, or we reframe the threat to our identity as for the greater good. And lastly, the one you're likely experiencing now, toward me. Discredit the source. Any direct threats to your belief can be simply dismissed as anti-Semitic. Use of this word against our own. I can't begin to tell you how upsetting that is. This should immediately feel manipulative as it leaves your mouth. Alarms should go off. Understand that this last strategy is a tool used inappropriately by Israeli and the United States authorities to protect their actions from any scrutiny at all. If this label is used in this way, it loses its power when needed for its intended purpose, ironically worsening the potency.
Collin, who's she been listening to? She been listening to me? She be talking about labels. What she know about labels? Huh?
Of real anti-Semitism. Being anti-Zionist isn't anti-Semitic. When you make this claim, you use the entirety of the Jewish diaspora as human shields. It reduces our existence, everything it means to be Jewish, all of us, every Mizrahi and Sephardi and Ashkenaz, every black, brown, Asian, mixed race Jew, every one of us standing together as one on Mount Zion, everything we have survived and rebuilt and carried on through generations, Kenachora, it reduces us to a fucking MAGA hat. This misuse brands anti-Semitism as a phrase that can't be taken seriously. In the world's eye, we become a bunch of white people crying wolf while simultaneously harming others. If this isn't how you wish to be seen, ask yourself how this has come to pass. Is this really consistent with who you consider yourself to be? And why are right-wing American politicians parenting the same talking points? Who benefits here and who loses? If the global Jewish diaspora has anyone to blame for the rise of anti-Semitism and renewed fear of living in a non-Jewish society, as, by the way, we've successfully done for thousands of years, it is the Israeli government. It's Bibi and his butthole friends. Their actions are, in fact, antithetical to Jewish teachings and everything it means to be Jewish. There is no tikkun olam, no tzedakah in their actions or their messaging. There's only greed, power, and hate. Tell me, where is that in the Torah? They don't care about what it means to be a Jew, but you should. We can't undo the damage that's been done, but we can change our minds at any time. That's the beauty of freedom. Of anybody, we should know how precious and fragile that beauty is. The most Jewish thing to do is the tzedakah of protecting the freedoms of others and openly rejecting anything that benefits Jews at the expense of others, even and especially if it means you have to reject Zionism.
I mean, next.
Yep. And girl, you're welcome to lead the religion at any time. I'm just saying, you don't got to be trapped in that thing. You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? Like that Church of Latter-day Saints. I'm gonna get you out, girl. It's okay. It's gonna be all right.
She can. I mean, one. Shout out to her for being so articulate and saying
absolutely.
I probably wanted to say in a better way than I ever could. But. And she said a lot there, but I'll just end the segment, with this in terms of what is if your freedom, let me rephrase, if your liberation is at the expense of taking away another's liberation, is that something that you really want? So,
yep.
And I'm just going to leave it at that. I think for our audience, I think the answer is very obvious. But as we've seen for many, it's surprising. Like we talked about how, 2/3 of the country want a ceasefire, and I've made this argument: a ceasefire in of itself is not enough, but that's where we're at. But yesterday we found where the other third of the people lie.
Yep.
And
this is classic. This is how religions are used time and time again. Right. Time and time and time again. So for me, it's like, yep. This is called manipulation. That's how this works.